So believe it or not, I was once quite shy and timid, and I would always be the last person to ever put up my hand in the classroom. But a few years ago, that all changed. And I went on a public speaking course where I really honed some of my presentation skills. I have to say it's the best thing that I ever did. And so today's guest is going to be sharing lots of insights around public speaking and presentation skills. But before we go on to that, I just want to welcome Barney, my awesome co-host. Hey, Barney, how you doing?
Hey, Paddy, thank you for having me over. And I'm super excited to also understand from Karen. This is such an interesting and an important topic. Most often we don't look at it and don't give it the attention that it deserves. And it's really a big part of how we show up in the world. So I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, awesome, Barney. And I'm guessing, Barney, you don't have that problem of being timid and shy.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. But no, I think my parents really instilled the debating skills in me, and I was always a debater. I did some national debates for India, so I think I did do a decent job there, but I don't think I'm quite at the level of maybe what Karen is. So definitely excited to learn more.
Oh, awesome. Right, we're going to put you to the test today then, Barney. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Karen Witchalls-Plunkett, who's a public speaking guru and trainer. Welcome to the show, Karen.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And so I guess let's just dive straight in. So Karen, can you tell us a bit more about what you do and why you do it?
Yeah, so what I do is I help people get over the fear of having to stand on stages and in front of camera, in fact, which has been a big part of what many people have had to do, over these past few months, the situation that we found ourselves all in. So my background is theatre and performance, live audiences. So I grew up in front of audiences for a very young age. And so, I'm comfortable and confident being in front of an audience, but I do understand for some people that, they'd really rather run a mile than have to get on a stage and address an audience, which I completely understand. And I suppose it's also, and Barney alluded to this, it's showing up, being present, being authentic. And actually for, people in business and for career progression, it can be really, really important that you do hone these skills, and they are skills that you can learn. There are people that naturally are comfortable getting into that arena, but for many, it really isn't a natural place at all for them. And, but with coaching and with some help, and I like to say that I use a hints and tips toolkit when I'm training and even when I'm speaking and sort of delivering talks, which I do on presentation skills. I give out little hints and tips and exercises, and it's always interactive sessions because, you are going to be hopefully interacting with your audience. We talk about body language, we talk about voice and tone and words, and we actually break those sections down because a lot of people not wanting to actually stand up and speak and have a voice is that they have this big fear, and often it's around the whole preparation, and that can make people really nervous and could be off-putting from the start. Somebody is asked to give a presentation, that actually can be the first stumbling block if it is down to you to actually produce the whole presentation and then deliver it. But like anything, with time and making sure you've got time to prepare all of that, that really helps. And making sure you're often given a length of time that you're going to be asked to speak, and there'll be a topic. It's often that you are the expert in that field, which I always say to everyone, well, that's fantastic, because that subject matter better than anybody else. So, and often it's a case of saying to people, you need to get out of your head that you think people will know more than you do. People are there to learn from you. They want to suck up all of that information. And they want you, you know, then they're on your side because they're showing up, often because, you know, they want to be there because they know that you know what you're talking about and you're going to be teaching them something new. And so I always say to people, you know, get that down, spend time, put it in your diary. I know things can be last minute sometimes, but planning really helps. And it is like anything, you know, like riding a bike, you know, you don't just get on the bike and zoom down the street. That takes time, it takes practice, but the more you do, the easier it becomes, and the more natural you become at it. And so that's something that is something I really do focus on with people, is to get them to really prepare, think about what they're going to say. And, you know, if you've got images that you need to show when you're up in a presentation space, think about not having images that have lots and lots of text, because what can happen, what can happen with that, if you have, you know, for example, if here or here, I just have lots of text there, often you'll find that's where people will be looking. You want people to be looking at you, to be engaged with you, not looking at reams of text and trying to decipher what's on that screen. So I always encourage people, where possible, to have images. And then you talk around those images. So people are seeing the images, fantastic, great. You know, that's sort of hard hitting for a start, that's engaging. And then obviously you're backing up what's on that screen. And so people, their focus stays on you. So if possible, have images and don't have a lot of words, you know, keep it simple. Often with my words, I will put them in capitals so they're easy to read. It might just be a title that I have up there. Sometimes I don't have any words at all.
Right.
I do appreciate, though, you may need to have graphs, you may need to have figures that you have to show. I would, you know, where possible, keep those strong, you know, color-wise, keep them as strong as possible. There might be branding guidelines that you need to follow those. But where possible, you know, keep those as bold as you can. And if, you know, you do need to have some text on the screen, ideally, if you can, bring those lines of text in as you talk about them, because then again, you know, there's the line that comes in, the focus is there, and then it's straight back on you. And then, you know, when you move on, you bring that next line of text in. So those are a few simple little tips that I give to people, even before we talk about, you know, standing up and getting into that space, the space whereby, you know, they're talking to their audience. So hopefully, you know, that will help people. And, you know, it's often that little in the head, isn't it? Almost that monkey saying, no, no, no. And you're trying to say, yes, I can. And it's no, 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 you know. So those are, you know, sort of basics that I often start with. Yeah.
No, nice. That's great, actually, Karen, because that really sets the scene in terms of some of the topics that I think we'll hopefully dive deeper into. And I absolutely, I think, concur with the imagery element of it and the visual element. And Barney knows this as well, that I'm a big fan of visual thinking. And so I now do try and incorporate a lot more in terms of visuals into presentations and that storytelling element, which is great to hear, actually. So I think there's a few things I'm doing better than I was before. And I guess what would be great to understand is, what types of people do you help in terms of presentation, public speaking? And I also understand you run an agency. So do you have sort of famous people on your books as well?
Yes. So in answer to your first question, it's a whole range of people, to be honest, anything from teenagers right up to senior executives, in fact. And I started running workshops, which were great fun. And I called those Teens on Screen. And really what it was about, it was confidence building for kids. It was also, we did interview techniques, we wrote scripts that then they would all work together. So it was bringing communication skills within your team, and deciding, you know, who would like to probably write, you know, the core pieces. And then we'd have some little subsections. And what we then did was we created a whole news program that they then presented, and they decided who would be the main presenter. Some of them then had a sports element, and then they might have a, you know, what's coming up element. So they decided what their program would be about, and then who would present the, as I say, present the elements or write the pieces. And so apart from it being fun, we had the learning elements, and we were, you know, getting over barriers also with the kids. And we did interview skills, which we know are really important, especially when, you know, you're moving on to university and for jobs. And so we set up those scenarios as well. But had fun with it along the way. And, you know, for many of the kids, again, they had the fear of standing up because they were, you know, with their peers, and then being in front of camera. But, you know, generally as the day moves on, people sort of relax into things, I find. You know, they forget that, oh, I don't want to stand up, you know, or I don't want to see myself on the screen. You do that a few times, and, you know, gradually people, those sort of fears seem to dissipate, and then they're sort of into the meat of, you know, what we're doing. And so really that's how it started. And then where I live, there's a lot of sort of entrepreneurial people and businesses that are starting up. And somebody had said to me, I'd gone to a networking event, which, you know, obviously we can't at the moment. We're networking via Zoom, which is fantastic. We've been able to do. But somebody actually said to me, you know, those sessions you run for teens are absolutely brilliant, but you do realise there's a whole raft of adults that actually really could do with some help and guidance and training in that arena. And so I set up businesses on screen, and started training individuals both for live presentations and getting on stages, and, you know, more recently for being in front of camera. And my sessions, you know, like everyone, I've adapted those sessions because we can't do face-to-face. So those have been running over Zoom, over Teams, and have been running successfully. So so a whole age group of adults that I train. And then the agency side, which you asked about there, that's something fairly new. That's just 3 years old. We turned 3 years just earlier this year.
Right.
And and we're just starting, which has been really exciting. We have people that do news, that do weather. And we've just broken into children's TV, which is a fabulous program called How, that's on CITV, that is all about, you know, challenges for kids, and it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's educational. And then we do a lot of other educational projects that my presenters will front the videos of. Some that are animated, which we've got a project going on at the moment, which is all about, which is fantastic. It will be going into schools, and it's all about mindfulness for kids, and also encouraging them to speak up if they are anxious or if they're worried. And so with these characters, there's interaction. So it's a fun way of helping the kids start to, you know, speak out. Aside from that, we do lots of voiceovers for the agency for different companies as well. And then I also cast for different projects. And we were very fortunate recently to have a number of projects go out overseas, which were commercials. So my presenters were fronting the commercial. So it's a whole raft of work that we deliver. Right, and and I'm always excited when we get new clients and we get repeat business. And I'm very much of building relationships with people. It's very, very important, which, you know, is the same for any business, really.
No, absolutely. And I think the business you're in is all about people. So that's really, really important. But no, thank you so much for that.
Do you have any personal horror stories where something went really horribly bad? Tell us about that.
I do, actually. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I was out in Germany a number of years ago, and it was a live presentation for Canon. We were doing a product launch at a big event in Frankfurt, and in between doing sort of the launch on stage events, I actually went to the toilet. And, you know, I know, and always that the big thing is turn your microphone off. Turn your microphone off. And of course, on this occasion, it's the only time I've done it, I actually forgot to turn my microphone off. So, you know, the sound people are hearing. And then, even more embarrassingly, what happened was, and in fact, you know, I should have unclipped the microphone and I should have turned it off before and just had it in my hand so it was safe. But when I actually went to stand up and move away from the toilet, the microphone actually dropped. It came away from the lead and it dropped into the toilet. And of course, immediately, I mean, I knew straight away that that was the end. It was the mic pack, I should say, the pack that you have, that dropped. And immediately I knew that that was the end of that pack. And I know how expensive these packs are. So I was really, you know, the tail between my legs when I actually, they were laughing on one hand when I came back. And then on the other hand, you know, panic ensued because, you know, this expensive mic pack would now not work. And they did have a backup, thank goodness, but I felt terrible. Absolutely terrible at that. I shouldn't laugh at all. And also the backup mic they had, or the pack, the quality wasn't quite as good. So they had to work extra hard on the sound. And also what they had to do was they had to get a new pack couriered from Amsterdam to Germany as well. So yeah, I wasn't the most popular person, let's say.
Well, as long as everything happened on the back side of it, I think we're good.
Yeah, oh, exactly. I still was able, as you do, you know, the performance goes on, the show goes on, and so it did. But yeah, that was one of my worst moments, definitely, I have to say. Yeah, and that one has stayed with me forever. Yeah.
Well, we're sorry that we brought it up today, but I think it's a really interesting story. But as long as it's on the backstage, so I think where things are okay. But I have an interesting question for you. And you mentioned at the start of the call, you know, be authentic. And I think public speaking is a topic that kind of gets triggered when you watch a great speech or you hear somebody talking really well. And that for me happens, you know, whenever I see a Barack Obama speech or, you know, something like that. So that's when it really gets triggered for me. So how would you really bridge that dilemma on, you know, being your authentic self, but also wanting to really kind of copy these really amazing styles that are out there?
Yeah, that's such a good question, actually. And I would have listed Barack Obama straight away. He's a fantastic orator, but he will have been trained, I'm sure, because there are very few people that can just get up on a stage and deliver and be, you know, engaging with their audience. And so there are some very simple things that we can all do. And I'm wondering that we might just join in now with a couple of little things that I do with, you know, when I'm sort of delivering the live presentation skills session. And so, you know, there are actually 3 headings which I talked at right at the beginning that I talk about. One is body language, the other one is voice and tone, and then the third one is words. And I will often ask the audience, and there are stats around effective communication skills and those 3 headings. And in actual fact, I've prepared something here that you can have a look at, but also you can listen to. So I put my 3 headings onto a simple piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, as I say, I've got body language, I've got voice and tone and words there. And so we've got a little pie chart on our piece of paper here, broken into 3. And so what I'd like both of you to think about, and our audience that is listening and watching, is, you know, a pie chart we want to make 100% with figures that we put into our pie chart. So what I'm going to ask you both to think about, and of course our audience as well, is for body language, what percentage of importance do you think with regard to communication skills is our body language? What percentage would you give to words, and what percentage would you give to voice and tone? Now remember, those percentages have to add up to 100%. I'm sure there'll be people that are brilliant mathematicians listening. So I can see that you're already writing, and I'm sure people who are listening and watching, hopefully everyone is having their sort of ticking their brains away. And so can I ask, do you have answers there? Have you jotted figures down? Yeah.
Yep. I think for me it is.
Would you like to share those now?
Yes, of course. I think for me, body language would be 50%, because I think that's the first way you watch somebody coming out on the stage, or you're watching somebody come into a room. And I think the body language talks so much about the energy that you're bringing onto the room or the stage. So I think for me, 50% would really go to body language. How about you, Paddy?
Yeah, I was going to say that I've got kind of two answers here. I think before I had any of the kind of presentation skills training, and before I'd actually seen myself back on camera, because it was at that moment that they recorded me and I gave a presentation. I looked back and I was like, I was in shock horror, to be honest. So I would have said, before having done that, it would be about 25% sort of body language. But now, knowing what I think I know, I would say it's a lot more than that. And I wouldn't want to guess what percentage, but I think it's a lot more than 25%.
Okay, yes, and so I'm going to put you on the spot, because I do want to look at the other, if I may, the voice and tone and the words percentage-wise. So, Paddy, what did you have for those?
I think I would put a 35 for the voice and tone and a 10 on the words.
Okay, yeah, great. And Paddy, what would you think with those two?
Yeah, I kind of went equal. I went about 25 each. So I really couldn't decide between the two. So.
Oh, okay, cool. So, Paddy, actually, with your breakdown, you are absolutely right, in fact. So percentage is not quite right, but with the figures and the way you broke each section down. So yes, body language is in fact 55%. Voice and tone is 38%, and then words are 7%, which is quite interesting. Yeah, I know, really interesting. Wow, I know often people can get really hung up on the words, but that doesn't mean, and I talked about this right at the beginning, preparation and how important that is. It doesn't mean to say that that you don't discount that. Of course you don't. But as you said, the first thing you see is you're gaining an impression when somebody steps up onto that stage, or they're introduced and they stand up. And in theatre world, which is where I come from, theatre and performance, we talk about having a presence on stage, and that all comes from the body language. And even it can come just a stage back from that, because it comes from how you're dressed. That's really important as well. And the same applies for being on camera. The last thing you want is to almost disappear into, to your background.
Like I am now.
Yeah, I would recommend perhaps having, something a little bit lighter color-wise on, and to have a look at that.
Got it.
I mean, me too, I think somehow.
Exactly. And, I purposely have worn a bright top. So I know that I will stand out.
That is amazing. Actually,
it's a learning right there.
That's the first thing I noticed. Yeah.
And it's actually great that you've worn colours that are quite similar to your background. I haven't, because people can see the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do what we do.
Yeah. So, it's finding out you know, what your background is going to be like. You know, if you've got your slides, etc., you've set that, but it might be an occasion where you haven't. So simple things like that to check. But you know, where even neutrals can work well, depends on the subject matter, and that again is something to think about, and the audience that you're delivering to. But if there is an opportunity to have a little bit of colour there, then, you know, that immediately does sort of give it that little bit of a moment of people, you know, almost looking and going, oh yes, you know, that person means business. So that's always something to think about, which I do cover when I'm doing, you know, longer sessions with people. We do talk about outfits and the importance of what you're wearing, and to be comfortable and to feel confident on the outside as well as the inside. So something else, and, you know, we're going back to our body language there. What I want you both to do is just to sort of slump down and not sit up straight at all. Yeah. And you can see what's happened to me. My shoulders have gone down, and then if I go further, my head goes down. You know, there's no engagement whatsoever. And so first off, what I get people to do is just to sit up, plant your feet. Oh my goodness, look at that, people. Oh, fantastic. And plant your feet on the floor just to feel what that feels like. And then roll those shoulders back and down. Oh, lovely. Fabulous. Then forwards. Excellent. And it's good to do that during the day anyway, if you're seated a lot. Now we're going to do a big stretch up and a yawn. Oh, great. And then shake the arms down. And then brilliant. This is our energy coming through. Fabulous. Now another big stretch up. And the yawn. And lovely. Feel that chest opening out. Brilliant. And then shake the hands and give them a good shake up and down. Fabulous. Brilliant. And so, you know, the purpose of that, either if you're standing or sitting, as we all are, is actually from this position to that position, you can immediately, that's exaggerated, but you can immediately see the chest is open. You're saying, I'm open to talk to you. I'm here, you know, for you. And it opens the chest, which also helps with your breathing. And then, you know, the point of shaking our fingers and our arms and hands is to get energy flowing. Before, you know, you step onto a stage, you know, obviously you've got to be in that right frame of mind. For whatever reason, on a particular day, you might not be. You might have been working really late. You might have had other things going on, that the kids have been unwell or whatever it might be. You have, for that moment, you've got to get yourself into that frame of mind where you know you can step on that stage and deliver. And I always say, you know, with these little simple exercises, you know, getting that frame right, getting that energy right is really, really important. And so I call with our feet planted, and the reason I do that, whether you're seated or standing, feet planted side by side is one of the strongest positions that you can start your opening line. You might have one foot slightly in front of the other, but again, you know, it's a very strong position to, as I say, deliver that opening line. And I always often say to people, think of having a string with a helium balloon. I'm not encouraging you to do that because you can hear what's happened to my voice. It's constricted, but it's just, again, to grow, but not grow and do this. The last thing we want is our shoulders up, because again, that's constricting our voice. So shoulders back and down. Think of that lovely helium balloon. So helium balloon, our feet planted, I call that audition position. When I go into studios to audition in front of camera or onto a stage, there often is what we call in the business a mark. And that can be gaffer tape or duct tape in a T that is on the floor. So it's marked out. And that means I stand with my feet hip distance apart. So I always call that, in my sessions I run, audition position, just as a memory for people. And then we say helium balloon, and then arms, hands. What on earth do we do with these? You know, the last thing we want is somebody with their hands in their pockets.
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, doing that the whole time.
Praying.
So say that again, Paddy.
I'm praying away here.
Yeah. You know, you don't want this grip of hands. You know, knuckles that are white, and you don't want to be doing, which I have seen from tapes that, you know, we play back, a little, somebody does a scratch, they don't know they're doing it, and then they're talking, and then we see this happen. So I encourage people as a starting point to have their arms, and I'm doing it quite high just for where the camera is, to have them resting, the fingers just resting together. It does look a bit odd here because I'm sat down, sort of waist height, ideally. And I call these BBC arms. Obviously, you know, other channels exist, etc. But if you watch the reporters, you watch the presenters on the BBC, often before they say anything, if they haven't got notes or an iPad, they will often have their hands resting. And then when they're looking to really express themselves, to make a point that they really want people to listen to, you will see the hands moving. They may do a little bit of side to side. And again, it's that whole visual engagement from the audience that is making what you're saying, but with your body, it's making it more interesting and engaging. And I do say to people, you can even turn the sound down, and you can see from their body language how that makes you feel. And if we think back to silent movies, you know, no sound, that's how they had to communicate with us. It was through their body language. And that is why body language has the 55%. And it's some very simple things that you can try in front of the mirror, or as you did, Paddy, when you had your session, you know, record yourself. And very simply just talk about, or even, and this is very important as well, introducing yourself. You may be introduced onto a stage, but you may not be. And the first thing you may have to say is, hello, good morning and welcome. My name's Witchalls-Plunkett. It's lovely to be here. It could be something as simple as that, but you could deliver that, and we'll move on to a little bit of voice and tone, but you could deliver it without our lovely seated position, our helium balloon and our BBC arms. If you delivered it and you were down here and you were saying, hello, good morning and welcome, it's lovely to be here, then you've lost your audience straight away. That's obviously an exaggeration, but what we'll do, if you're happy to do a couple of little vocal exercises, what I thought we'd do is do some of those vocal exercises, and then we'll just do that line both ways. So without any of our little hints and tips, and then with our hints and tips, because I just want you to feel the difference. So what I'd like us to start off doing is, again, just we're going to do a little bit of breathing this time. And again, I appreciate and understand people can get anxious. They can get nervous before, you know, getting up into a space with an audience and even going on camera. So we're simply, and we'll always give a count of 1, 2, 3, and then we'll take a breath in. Or when we go into our exercise, we'll do a 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go into our simple exercise. So this time, what I'd like us to do is to put our hands on our diaphragm, so just below the ribs. And what we're looking to do is imagine a balloon that we're going to blow our balloon up, and then we're going to make a, and we're letting the air out of the balloon. So we've got our hands here. And the idea is we're expanding that diaphragm. And the reason for doing this is the more breath that we have, the more control we have, over our voices as well, especially if we need to project to an audience. So sitting nice and tall, here we go, count of 3, 1, 2, 3, breath in, and Lovely, very good. And both of you, I didn't see your shoulders come up, which is often what happens. So everything was lovely, back and down. So we're going to try that again. Hopefully you can...
With our hands inwards, or just letting it naturally kind of go in.
Yeah, so did you feel your hands move, Paddy, when you did the breath out? Yes. And then just naturally, as you breathe out, the hands should come closer together. And you can even, if you want to, you can even start with your fingertips together. And then with that breath, the fingertips should part, and then they will close up as you exhale. So you can put them this close if you like to. Hopefully, we'll do it, as I say again, you should feel almost a little bit of calmness on the inside from these deep breaths. And these are brilliant for any situation, not just for getting up in front of an audience, but if it's an interview that you've got to go into and you are feeling anxious and nervous, some simple deep breaths can really work. So let's sit nice and straight. Our count of 3, 1, 2, 3, breath in. And lovely. Take the arms down. So hopefully you could feel that expansion. And do you feel a little bit calmer now that we've just done those couple of breathing exercises?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, good. So that's calmer on the inside. Still on the outside, we need to have that lovely energy, which comes from our body language, but also it comes from our voice as well, our tone of our voice, even the pace of our voice. And something else we talk about with our voice and tone is even pauses. And I do say to people, don't be frightened of having that little moment of a pause. It can, it sort of gathers your thoughts even then, and it can give you an opportunity on a stage to actually take a couple of steps, draw that audience with you while you move to a slightly different position on the stage. And then you're off again. So pitch, pace, pause, power in the voice is important, and of course pronunciation, so that everything is very clear, that people can understand, because you just never know from an audience where they might come from, what language they might speak. So it's also very, very important to speak as clearly as you possibly can. So we're now going to do a couple of little simple vocal exercises that cover just a couple of those pointers that I've talked about. So we're going to sit up nice and straight, and we're going to use D and T. So we're going to use d-d-d-d and t-t-t-t. So d-d-d-d is quite low in the range, so down, and t-t-t-t is lighter. So we're talking about different range of the voice, light and shade, that then adds interest. So what we'll do is we'll do our 1, 2, 3 with our breath in. We'll do our d-d-d-d coming forwards, and our t-t-t-t back and up. And also with that t-t-t-t, what it naturally does is it naturally lifts our cheekbones, which gives us a little bit more of a pleasant look, which again, before you even speak, when you first get on that stage, just to have a pleasant look that is warmth from the start, is then, your audience will already be informing, what they're thinking of you, an opinion about what they're thinking of you. So that little t-t-t, obviously we're doing a bit of a grin here, which you don't necessarily need to do, but it just lifts those cheekbones and the eyes are more alive. So just to recap, a 1, 2, 3 breath in, it's do-do-do-do forwards, t-t-t-t, and we will speed up as we go along. So then the breath is really important. So here we go, sitting nice and tall. 1, 2, 3, breath in, and do-do-do-do, 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 t-t-t-t, do-do-do-do, t-t-t-t, do-do-do-do, t-t-t-t, and faster. So this time, 1, 2, 3, breath in, and Excellent. Well done. Round of applause. Round of applause.
Oh, wow.
So that's getting the mouth moving. I talk about the mask of the face, waking the mask of the face up. Also, it wakes the tongue up. Remember, the tongue is a muscle. We warm muscles up before we start using them. So a simple little exercise, which, you know, makes us laugh a little bit as well, hopefully helps us relax. But what it's doing is it's getting that mouth moving, and with our d and our t, so we're lower register, higher register, a little bit of light and shade into the voice. This time what we're going to do, and this is all really about our pronunciation, is a little tongue twister. So you may have heard of this one, and it is, she sells seashells on the seashore. You may be familiar with that one. I can see, yeah, you're both nodding. Yay, hands up. Excellent. Lovely. So we're going to do that together. So it's she sells seashells on the seashore. We are going to over-exaggerate it a little bit, but we will get faster and faster. And so with that, the key is to keep those words very clear and very precise with what we're saying, so everyone can still understand us. So here we go, sitting up nice and tall, our feet are planted, we are looking fantastic, I have to say. We are looking confident before we start. Our count of 3, here it comes. 1, 2, 3, breath in. And she sells seashells on the seashore. She sells seashells on the seashore. And again, a bit faster. She sells seashells on the seashore. She sells seashells on the seashore. And faster. She sells seashells on the seashore. She sells seashells on the seashore. She sells seashells on the seashore. She sells seashells on the seashore.
Love that.
Excellent. So that really simple one, but a good one to practice, to get everything moving, waking up all those senses here. And, you know, again, it made us laugh. And, you know, sometimes it just sort of makes those nerves dissipate a little bit. So those are a couple of very simple exercises that we can do. And then, as I said at the beginning, with our words, really, you know, they, of course, they're important, but a lot of that is about the preparation and really not getting too hung up on it. You know, you're often experts, you know your subject matter. So it's actually, and I just say to people, you know, something comes in your head, you know, you've got a presentation or a talk coming up, jot that down. Because when you actually come to sit and focus more on that content, you'll be surprised if you've made some notes that they will slot in quite nicely, or you slot them in, then you may move them around a little bit. And also if an image comes into your head that you think will be ideal for your subject matter and the topic you're going to talk about, again, make a note about that. And then, you know, when you've got the time, go and find that image and start to plot that. When we're doing commercials, there's always what we call a storyboard, or films, a storyboard of what is going to be portrayed, talked about. So it's almost like a vision board. So you're almost then visualizing what you're going to be delivering, which to me is, you know, I'm a very visual person, and that is always such a great help. And then don't just leave anything that you've done and created, don't just leave it and think, right, I've done that. Absolutely not. You've got to, I almost say, take it off of the page, because it's different to having words on a page to then delivering them in front of an audience. And I always say to people, you know, you don't need to know it verbatim. You've got your images that will also be guides and prompts. You're an expert in your field, but what I do always suggest is that you nail that first paragraph, that first line in particular, that we're going to do in just a moment. But then that first paragraph, and that you sit and say it out loud, you record it, you get in front of a camera and you play it back, or in front of a mirror and you play that back. So you know that when you step up onto that stage, that's in there. And you can say that's your opening. You're confident with that. And then what you'll find is you settle into things. And I always say to people, then you can sit back. That's like, oh, I've got that bit over. That's over. So now, I've got my audience, they're engaged. So I'm off and running, and I'm going into the detail a little bit more now. And I'm going to give them some very important information, some very important facts that they'll be able to take away, they can learn from. And then equally, at the end, when you're finishing, it's just as important to leave that strong impression with your audience as you did at the beginning. So you don't want to be waffling around at the end. That again has to be a strong thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the session today. Do remember, I'm Karen Witchalls-Plunkett, and the lens really is your friend. So a nice cut, there. And then, the round of applause comes and, somebody will then perhaps be saying thank you, or they may be opening the floor up to questions. So those two elements, extremely important. And so what I'd like us to do now is that sentence I talked about, which was hello, good morning, and a very warm welcome. It's lovely to be here. We're going to deliver that. What we're going to do first, though, is not think about our posture, our stance, our body language, and we're not going to think about our voice. So our aim is to make it as boring and as uninteresting as we can. And so our line is, hello, good morning, and welcome. It's lovely to be here. So we'll attempt to take a breath in, but as you're slumped and you're not stood up, you should find that it's much harder to take a breath in. So let's all have a go. I'll do our count of three, our most boring, uninteresting delivery without body language. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, attempt breath in. Hello, good morning, and welcome. It's lovely to be here. Well, I was bored with myself. I don't know about both of you.
Paddy, do you want to go next?
Oh God! Right, let me try this then. Right.
Yeah, go, Paddy.
Hello, welcome. I've got that the wrong way around. Hello, good morning.
It doesn't matter. The words don't matter. Nobody knows what you're going to say. That's the thing. Also, people don't know.
I got it right. Hello, good morning, welcome. It's good to be here.
Oh yes, lovely. Yeah, the hello was quite bright, but after that, I was already bored. And Barney was, she sort of laughed, I think, in embarrassment. No, I didn't. Okay, off you go, Barney.
Hello, good morning. I'm used to saying this, so it's making me laugh. But okay. Hello, good morning. It's lovely to be here.
Oh my goodness, yes. Can you feel the difference? Yes, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and you're really animated. So this time, which is going to be so much easier for all of us, we're going to sit up. And if you do, want to sort of, even if we can't see your hands, if you do want to just sort of move them a bit, there will be a little bit of movement in the body. So we've got our nice helium balloon. We've got our feet planted in our audition position, and just rest your hands. Think of our BBC arms. So here we go. It's we're on our stage. It's the first time we're addressing our audience. 1, 2, 3, breath in. Hello, good morning, and welcome. It's lovely to be here. Okay, so Paddy, your turn.
Right, okay. Hello, good morning, and welcome. It's lovely to be here.
Very nice. Very nice. Barney?
Hello, good morning. It's lovely to be here. Did I sound too friendly? No, I'll give it another try, maybe.
Do one more.
Hello, good morning. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, nice.
There's a nice little British accent at the end there, Barney. I like that.
Yeah, it is. It is. And also, just as a point, I know we were talking about live presentations, but what I want you both to do also is find the lens.
Oh,
exactly where your lens is on your screen. My tagline is the lens is your friend. And again, if you're on camera, if I'm looking down here, I'm looking slightly away, obviously I'm not completely engaged with my audience. So I do say to people, you might want to have a little sticker of a smiley face on your screen, and the reason we say the lens is your friend, it's because we have a conversation. That's what it's all about. When we're on camera, particularly, we're not thinking different on stage because we can see people.
Yeah.
When we're on camera, we are only thinking of one person that we're having a conversation with, not that big wider audience, because that can often be what makes us anxious and nervous. So I always say to people, have either in your mind or have a picture that you stick up of, as I say, smiley face, might be your best friend you love having a conversation with, or having a glass of wine or a beer with, or it might be a pet. You enjoy having a conversation with your pet. But the key is, and I know people do find this difficult, is to hold that lens. And especially, you know, where we find ourselves now, being on Zoom calls, being on team meetings, when you are speaking, rather than look at, you know, people that are on that screen, it's your time to shine, it's your moment. And that's really, really important, is to find, mine's a green light on here, you might have a red light, but it's getting used to that. And again, feeling comfortable with it and feeling confident, because you feel like you're talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And in some respects, on camera, it's actually even more important, because you haven't got necessarily an audience to feed off of. You have to keep that energy going. So that is in your body language, it's in that voice in particular, and the tone of that voice as well.
I just have this real kind of challenge with myself at the moment, especially like even talking to yourselves. Like I do just look at whoever I'm talking to on the screen, and I feel like I've got to make eye contact with you, but obviously I'm not, because I'm not looking at the camera. But no.
So the eye contact, the eye contact is that the lens is what gives the eye contact, Paddy. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's something just to practice and then to feel comfortable with.
I think a lot of it also tends to happen when you're looking for people in the faces in a virtual call, is also to understand or catch the pulse of how your message is being received. And you can't do that without reading people's faces when you're talking. So I think that's why we tend to more focus on people's expressions and faces when we're talking than really focus on, you know, what we're talking.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I know often there can be quite a few people on calls. In my head, I'm always telling myself, you know, even before, and as I said, you know, people are on the call. It might be you're guiding the call or you're taking part, but they are there because they might have been told to be there, but it will be for a reason. And it was for interest, to learn something, to give some information. So I, in my head, I'm always saying, you know, people are interested on what I'm, or in what I'm saying, and so I try not to worry about those expressions. I keep my delivery, you know, for the topic that's being discussed, you know, the right tone, the right feel throughout. And in my head, I'm saying to myself, people are interested in this, they are engaged, and then trying not to worry about, and that's why I'm not sort of hunting around the screen. So it might be something to try next time. See how that feels.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for these lovely exercises. I think they were so simple but yet so powerful, and I think they've woken up our senses, which makes a perfect precursor for our next segment, which is a quick fire round. And we would like to ask you one question, and the answer has to be short, crisp, and precise. So are you ready, Karen?
Yes, go on, go for it.
All right. So your first question is, what are your biggest tips for presenting or public speaking?
So biggest tips are preparation, is getting in the right frame of mind. So whatever tools and tips you need so that you're confident to get out on that stage and deliver.
Awesome. Thank you. And your second question is, what's your biggest tip to combat stage fright?
So to combat stage fright, something we did, breathing can be really, really useful. And it can even be something that you play, for example, a favorite tune in your head that just takes you away. But you do need to be in the moment. You do need to be ready. So to get away from stage fright, it's all about the preparation, being ready and doing whatever it takes so you feel ready to get onto that stage and deliver in the best way, the most engaging way you possibly can.
Awesome. And your last third question is, what's the biggest tip that you have that one must not do ever, either on stage or on camera during a virtual call or in person?
That's a really good question, actually. I would say most often it's not appropriate to swear at all. Absolutely not. Or to really make the audience feel belittled. Those definitely are no-nos.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You fared very well on the rapid fire round. I think it's one of the fastest rapid fire rounds that I've had with Paddy. So handing it back to you, Paddy.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. So I think just to wrap up then, Karen, because it's been absolutely amazing. There's so much richness in this conversation. I'm so glad we did this session. But I know you're working on some exciting upcoming initiatives. You mentioned some training courses. So it'd be great for you to share maybe what's coming up and how could some of our listeners get onto some of that training?
So as of this moment, I'm having a new website created for my businesses on screen, which is my training arm. At the moment, to find my sessions that I'm running via Zoom, which are one-to-one or group sessions or lunch and learn, you can go to pmpagency.co.uk/training. So that's pmpagency.co.uk/training. And I'm always happy to have a conversation, a half an hour chat. If anybody is looking for sort of details about the training sessions, they are bespoke sessions. They can be tailored to meet your needs. So it can be, as I said, a group, one-to-one, or a lunch and learn. So there's lots coming up on the website. The new website, I should say, but also with my existing sessions that I run for people.
Fantastic. And we'll definitely put the URL in the show notes so people can find that easily. So thank you so much. I guess, Karen, any final words from yourself, any final messages you'd like to sort of leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I would say, if you are given that opportunity to get onto a stage or be in front of camera, then don't shy away from it. Take that opportunity. It might be that moment where you say yes, and then after you say, oh no, what have I done? But, with some of the hints and tips we've covered today and further training, then anyone can step up to that platform and they can deliver.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, my biggest takeaway from today is the lens is your friend, and I'm actually looking at the lens right now. I'll slowly try to incorporate that into my sort of Zoom presentations. But thank you so much. And thank you so much, Barney, as well, for being an amazing co-host today.
My pleasure. Absolutely loved it. I think these are the exercises you told us is something, you could just have it on a piece of paper, put it in front of your work screen and keep practicing every 5 minutes or not 5 minutes, that's too much, but maybe every 1 hour-ish or 2 hours, and get your energy and senses back and then perform.
Fantastic.
Yeah, excellent. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be here as well. Thank you so much for asking me to join both of you today.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'll change my background for next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Bye.